good vertical live stream, for the small audience that I have. The wife enjoyed it as well. Um, she is not available now, so it will be just I doing this, and this is going to be a short session because I ate, and as per usual, I'm waiting to digest my food before I go out, run, and hit the gym. So, it's like about 5:20 p.m. right now. So I am thinking for this for this live stream, how about we bring back what we did 4 days ago when I said ask me a philosophy question? It went rather askew and didn't really concentrate on philosophy as much as it talked about religion and almost anything else other than philosophy proper. But let's try it again. Let's do this again. Ask me any philosophy question. No one's on right now, so I'm just basically yelling into the ether. But for people who pop on and see me, you know, they'll see this recording later on, posted to my channel. And again, I'm saying, let's talk philosophy, anything. And when I say ask me any philosophy question, I don't want to come off as saying that I'm some expert in philosophy as much as I wish I was. I'm just a philosophy nerd, which means, I actually do have a academic background in philosophy, but I'm not a, I don't hold a doctorate in it. I'm just a philosophy nerd. So for everyone, just jumping in to the live stream, I'm doing another version of what we did 4 days ago, which is ask me a philosophy question. Ask me any philosophy question. Um, it can be pertaining to anything we talked about several days ago, or it can be a new question or a different one. I went over my background last time as far as my own philosophical views. I didn't get too specific just because it wouldn't have made sense for folks who don't know much about analytic philosophy or cognitive science. So I kind of kept it pretty bare minimum, but I can get more specific if anyone likes. But yeah, today just ask me any philosophy question whatsoever. And yes, it can be about religion, it can be about logic, it can be about epistemology, philosophy of language, metaphysics, aesthetics, ethics, virtue philosophy, um, cognitive science, philosophy of mind, philosophy of science, all of those things. Carol Esther Wisdom says, "Hi man, what's your channel about?" Hi Carol. So my channel is sort of a wide breadth of topics. I consider myself sort of a nerd, so I'm interested in a bunch of different things, and I don't have just one niche thing about the channel. One aspect of the channel, I talk a lot about martial arts, and I have a bunch of videos talking about my martial arts training, and I also debunk a lot of martial arts myths. And I think I'm gonna do another live stream just on debunking martial arts myths. Um, then I also talk about nerdy stuff like science and philosophy, and then I often talk about things going on in current events and pop culture and politics. I do a lot of YouTube shorts, usually talking about stuff going on in current events and politics. So that's generally what my channel is about. And I probably will be starting a second channel that will just be about martial arts by itself. And I appreciate you for jumping in on the live. Don Cheadle, you will be timed out if you can't control yourself. I don't mind, some ribbing, you know. It's all in good humor, bro. But let's try to be productive, all right? If not, you'll have to be timed out. Camry Rennick says you do your best. Schubert, Sorry, I'm gonna try to pronounce your name correctly, okay? Shubra Jati Deb asked philosophy and science, what's the difference? Oh, that's a philosophy question all in itself. Thank you for asking me that. We can start with that. And before that, I want to say what's up to Dion Verhoeven. He says hello, amigo. What's up? Um, Carol says I'm also a nerd. Nerds rule, right? Juice Dope is back. What's up, Juice Dope? So let me answer Schubert Jati's question: philosophy and science. What's the difference? To be honest, there's not a strong difference. So up until the 1900s, there was no distinction between philosophy and science. The branch of philosophy that where most scientists would have been doing what's considered science today was called natural philosophy. And even in a lot of university departments today, you still might see the old moniker natural philosophy. As a matter of fact, normally the highest degree, the doctorate, whether it's a PhD, EDD, PsyD, whatever, um, usually with the PhD, you're considered a philosopher of that discipline. That's what it literally means, doctorate of philosophy in whatever subject, right? Um, but let me be more specific. So today the differences between philosophy and science are basically the philosophy um, studies the nature of the world and everything in it from a sort of conceptual and logical investigation. At least analytic philosophy does. And science investigates things through an empirical investigation. Although, again, there's still some overlap because um, you have things like moral psychology that kind of crosses that gap. Cognitive science today is sort of like a, a interdisciplinary approach between philosophy and several different sciences. Um, and you have a branch of ethics in philosophy proper that does empirical investigation. So there is some overlap, but generally, philosophy is a conceptual method of investigation where science is a empirical method of investigation. But then you also have formal sciences and empirical sciences, which is a whole different caveat that I don't we don't need to bring up. Okay. Thanks for subscribing, Carol. I appreciate it. Um, what's up, Juice Dope? Um, Dion says you look intelligent. Well, thanks. That's that's actually a compliment because some people don't, even though they are very astute, and I don't particularly find myself that intelligent. But if I look intelligent, that's a plus. But I don't really consider myself that intelligent. I'm actually skeptical of the people who do find themselves super intelligent because usually they're not, and they overestimate their abilities. And there's a whole um, psychological phenomena dealing with that sort of thing. How old are you? 46. So Slowpoke says 100 billion plus to Ukraine, but none for U.S. citizens. Crazy. Yeah, no. That's a different subject, but yeah. And it wasn't just to the Ukraine, then it was also money to Israel and Taiwan. So we're basically paying billions of dollars for proxy wars. So different subject for another day, but I'm with you. What kind of job you have? I do lead generation and direct marketing. Okay. Uh, Schubert Jati says it's jolly, isn't it, how science, philosophy, along with psychology, has taken a collaborative stance in our modern society. Yeah, I mean, they were always there, but in academia, they've made a lot of progress. So that's, like I said, that's why we saw the rise of cognitive science in the 60s with people like Noam Chomsky is considered one of the founders of cognitive science, as well as people like the late philosophy Jerry Fodor, who just died um, several years ago. Just sad because I had wished to have met him because I have several of his books and I like him as a philosopher. Um, but yeah, they're considered the founders of cognitive science, where basically they helped overthrow the research program within psychology, which was behaviorism. So behaviorism was both a psychological research program as well as a sort of thought and philosophy that mental mental phenomena couldn't be studied, only behavior could be studied scientifically. However, the radical behaviors went farther than that. They didn't just say that mental processes and other things couldn't be studied scientifically. They also just denied outright that those things existed. So, um, cognitive science sort of disproved that. And that was through a collaborative effort of people steeped in analytic philosophy crossing over into psychology and linguistics departments. So, yeah. Carol says, but there are some rules that apply between the two, and in the end, they just merge in a way. So, yeah, like I said, the there's not a sharp. It's there's a the distinction between science and philosophy is a pragmatic one. It's not a natural distinction. It's just a pragmatic one. One is good for bureaucratic purposes in academia, and two is useful because if we're talking about mainly just empirical investigation, a la the scientific method, then we would distinguish that as the sciences, where we're talking about natural sciences, social sciences, and so forth. Whereas when we're talking about mostly conceptual investigation, then we're talking more philosophy, but also the formal sciences, because the formal sciences is more complicated. The formal sciences are logic, math, um, computer science, um, data data studies, that sort of thing. So the formal science is sort of like this in between. So Rob, you are you're getting you're getting booted. I'm not dealing with trolls right now. Prekar Singh says, "Do you know Negan Smith?" I don't know who you're talking about. The only Negan I know is from The Walking Dead. Alex, you are getting timed out. Mind you, people are getting timed out. If I see you again in the stream and you're being a troll, you're just going to be banned from the channel completely. And the way YouTube does it is that it won't just ban that YouTube handle, it's going to ban anything coming from your IP address. So I never have to deal with you again. Ezra is gone. You put a shame to the name Ezra, by the way. What does philosophy say about life and death? So that deals uh, in several different subjects. So you have existentialism, which talks about life and death. Then you have the philosophy of religion, which talks about life and death. Um, there's another field. Let me make sure I get the word right. I'm about to look that up. I have no problem looking stuff up that I'm not um, privy to. uh, I think it's called eschatology, but that's more dealing with um, religion than philosophy. But I guess but it also depends what you mean as far as about life and death. You mean life? I mean life after death. Because you can look at that from a bunch of different viewpoints. So if you're asking whether what most philosophers have to say about life after death, I would say this is one of those things that was answered by philosophers a long time ago, along with along with the question about the meaning of life. Just like with the meaning of life, so-called life after death, from the from most philosophers' point of view, there's no reason there's no reason outside of taking it on faith to believe that there's life after death. And some guys take it even further and think that the question about life after death itself is incoherent because how is there life after death? I don't take it that far because I know what most people think that when they're saying life after death, they're not saying life in the same capacity as we have it right now, a biological life. So there are things to say about it. So on one end, like I said, philosophers have mostly agreed, mostly because you can't get all philosophers to agree on anything, but most of them have agreed that outside of taking it on faith, there's no reason to believe that there's life after death. However, if you look at things from the field of philosophy of mind, there is a possibility of people living beyond their biological death um, through, you know, through the continuation of their psychological connectedness. So, what is psychological connectedness? So, that gets back to questions going all the way back to Plato about um, what, what is the self, and do uh, what what would be what would be what are the what defines something continuing as the same thing, as the same person or the same individual over time. So what is identity over time? And one of the first people in modern philosophy to tackle this was John Locke. John Locke believed that I that our self identity over time was defined by our memories. He was wrong, but he wasn't completely wrong. So we know that identity over time, we have no necessary and sufficient conditions to talk about what is um, what would make us the same person over time. But we know that bodily physical identity is a necessary condition. So being in the same physical body is a necessary condition for being identical to this over time, from being a child, I mean a baby until the day we die, being in this physical form throughout that journey identifies you as the same person over time. However, we go back to Locke once we think about cognitive science because most people, when they're talking about being, some being the same person over time, they're not just talking about physical, like our physical selves. They're talking about mentally as well. Like how do like they're talking about the survival of of our personhood over time, and that's not and physical identity is not a necessary condition for that. What we find is a condition, and I would say a sufficient condition, of psychological connectedness. Part of that is memories, like John Locke had had hypothesized back in the 1600s, but he didn't go far enough. Psychological connectedness isn't just your memories; it's your personality, it's your memories, it's your quasi memories, it's your beliefs, your desires, and your stream of consciousness. All of those things make up your psychological connectedness. If to say to so what's more important to people is not that you're the same identically over time. It's that you survive as the same person over time, and that's a psychological thing. And that is something that could potentially go beyond someone's biological death, because you can hypothetically think that in the future someone's psychological connectedness could survive in another body, or even in a machine. So that's what philosophy has to say about life after death. And there's more to be said about it, but I think that's a long enough answer. Dion says, okay, nice job, dude. I'm a casino technician. It's like a mental institution. Oh, I know, because you have a lot of people who are gambling addicts that come there. You have a lot of people who may not necessarily be gambling addicts, but they're desperate and thinking, all I need is this one lucky game, and I'm back. I'm back again, baby. So yeah, I'm pretty sure in the casinos you deal with a lot of um, interesting people, right? Red says like a blue collar Blade. Wait, so how is Blade a white collar person? But I'll take it. I mean, um, if I guess if you're referring to the Wesley Snipes version of Blade, hey, I'll take it. First of all, Red, let's keep it civil. And I've addressed this in other live streams. This is the normal way that I talk, buddy. I don't dumb myself down for stupid people. If you want to know what I'm saying, use your dictionary, use Google. I'm not going to dumb myself down for people. I made that mistake as a young person where I tried to be cool by dumbing myself down because less intelligent people like yourself couldn't understand what I was saying. Then I realized as I got older, that's not a me problem, that's a you problem. And if that's something that you can't deal with, then you can go somewhere else. Shubrajati said, I read this book last day uh, on 59 Seconds with Richard Wiseman. It spoke exactly how behavioral psychology is creating a buzz among youth on less saving and spending more. You're probably talking about like behavioral techniques and stuff. So yeah, I'm not dumping on um, like behavioral therapy or behavioral methods of investigation, because psychology still uses the methods of behaviorism in its methodology. What I'm saying is it's rejected it as an ideology of psychology. Like that's no longer the ideology of psychology anymore. The thought that mental processes uh, can't be scientifically studied. That idea has been thrown out um, 50 plus years ago. Not a Republican, and since you can't control yourself, you are gone. Schubert Jati says, "Sir, is there any possibility I can talk with you one on one through Google Meet or WhatsApp?" Um, I I really don't do consultations like that. Um, it depends on the nature of it. What you can, if you are genuinely interested in talking about something, I do have a Cash App in the link. Send me a Cash App, and then in the description for what it is, tell me specifically what it's about, and tell me a time and the platform that you want to use that we can talk on. We can do it that way. But generally, I don't give consultations that often. But if it is something concerning to you, like I said, you can look into my descriptions, find my link for the Cash App, send send money through that, whatever you think is would be appropriate to what you want to discuss. Leave a specific um, explanation of what you like to discuss and what times you're available and what sort of um, app you would prefer us being on. Okay. Juice says, yeah, this chat is crazy. I know you get a bunch of trolls. It's whatever. I don't care. Like I timed them out because, like I said, I really don't understand the 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 behavior of trolls. Like there's so many other better things to do, and it's so much more important people on YouTube to check out. Although I'm pretty sure they've probably been banned off those channels as well. So anyway, Dion says you're longer dead than alive, to live life, my man. Yeah, so that's sort of the atheist point of view, is that it's kind of absurd to live your whole life preparing for the afterlife when we have no evidence that there is an afterlife. We only know that there's a life now, and we should be taking the fullest, living it to the fullest potential, because this is probably all we have. Carol says, yes, but if you look at everything, most things have a rule. Thy follow and in thy run together. I have come across this in my experiences. JJ Boy says, hello. What's up, JJ? Cam says, who cares? Well, since you don't care, then you can go. Like, I really don't understand the point of jumping onto a live stream of something of which you have completely no interest. And I know some people are bored, but that kind of shows that you're not a very intelligent person, because there's literally thousands of other things to do. You can, well, I know people don't go to the mall like we did back in the 90s, but I mean, you could. You could go to the mall, you could read a book, you could read some comics, you could watch TV, you could watch some sports, you could check out other stuff on YouTube that you are genuinely interested in watching, because there's something on YouTube on YouTube literally for everyone. Um, you could go do some sports. You could go to the gym. Um, if you have a pet, you could go play with your pet. If you're not an incel like most of these guys are, they could like hang out with their girlfriend, like anything. But I just don't understand the mentality of trolls. Like it seems like a such a wasted effort, especially when you're gonna get the same thing everywhere you go on any YouTube channel. You're just gonna end up getting banned. So I don't understand the point of that, but it just shows that they're not very bright. But which makes sense, because the average IQ of the American general population has been falling for the last 20 years anyway. So this is just a display of the idiocracy out there. Nate says, when do you ever shut up? I don't know if you're referring to me or the troll, but I'm gonna be charitable and assume that you're talking about one of the trolls. But as I scroll down and I see that it's pertaining to me, Tabello Macona says, Tabello says, oh boy, I don't know what language that is. Sorry. And since I keep seeing Red's stuff, even though I've banned him, I mean, even though I timed him out, I just banned him from the channel. There's no point in him being here. He's not a sub, so I don't care about him. Shubert Jati says, sir, I would recommend you to read Bhagavad Gita once, not for the religious virtue, but for a read. It talks about the philosophy of death, happiness, life, everything, and the quotes are brilliant. I've never heard of it. Is it one of the Hindu I forgot the name of the literature, the Hindu Vega, um I forgot what it's called, but if that's what it is, maybe I'll look into it. I have a huge bucket list of books I still need to read, um, including all the ones here. I still have a bunch of textbooks I still want to read from undergrad that I haven't finished, and a few from grad school, but mostly a bunch of textbooks from undergrad I still want to read. So I get through those and some articles that I have from grad school, especially my pro seminars in cognitive science. I still want to get through, and a bunch of books I want to rent. I mean, I want to check out in the library that are like classic, like a lot of classic literature. I love classic literature, like stuff like um, The Grapes of Wrath. I still want to read that. uh, all stuff, a bunch of stuff like that. I've literally read thousands of books, but I still have hundreds more to go. Pokerman says, "Make me a mod. I'll take care of all these haters for you." I'm good, Pokerman. I appreciate it though, brother. Usually my wife has been handling this in my live stream, but it's too early for her. Um, it's 5:50 in the morning, and she should be doing her little run because I make her. Well, I don't make her, but I told her she should go run before the start of work, and usually later on during the day when she's working, she'll help me out because she can multitask that way. But I'm good. I do appreciate it. Nate is gone. I thought he was referring. So I was trying to be charitable and think that Nate was referring to one of the other trolls, but it looks like he is referring to me. So since he since he will end himself if he watched this, I'll just do him a favor and hide him from this channel. Dion Verhoeven says that's why if you are longer dead than alive, you have to live now, my man. Agreed. Agreed. And I'm sure some of you guys have heard that. I don't know if they're still doing it, but there was very wealthy people about 20, 30 years ago that were trying to use cryogenic freezing to preserve themselves after death. The problem with that approach, and you may have seen that in movies like in sci-fi movies like Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. The problem with trying to cryogenically freeze your body is twofold. So one, so what happened is these people are dying from illnesses that can't be treated in the present. So the idea is before they pass away from this disease, they'll be cryogenically frozen in these tubes, and someone in the future will hopefully have solved this problem, whether it's like some inoperable form of cancer or whatever, and they will be waking out of their cryogenic state, and doctors in the future will be able to cure them of this disease, or it's just to preserve their body into the future where presumably they can be resurrected by science. So it's a bunch of flaws in this approach, right? So one is the purely pragmatic reason that we don't know that off into the future there will be people taking care of your cryogenically frozen body up until that point. Anything can happen, like let's say the power grid goes down, then then your body will no longer be frozen, or that project may be canceled for whatever reason, whether by government or the people who were funding it stop funding it, or whatever the case may be. There's no assurance that that program will be running way off into 500 years in the future, or however long it takes for your body to be preserved, where they can bring you back to life and cure you of your illness that can't be cured today. So that's the first reason, the pragmatic reason why it's not going to work. Um, the the other problem is one of pure biology, and people will notice from if you ever put meat in the freezer for too long. When you preserve food in the freezer for too long, it gets freezer burn, right? You know what freezer burn is when there's actual crystals that form in the meat of the product being frozen, and it destroys the meat. So if you put steak in the freezer for too long, that freezer burn will destroy the meat because it will form crystals in that meat that will destroy it from the inside out. And that the same things that happen to cow flesh will happen to human flesh over time. There's really no way to preserve that, even if they have, I don't know, some sort of futuristic method of of destroying the ice crystallization that happens in the human body through this cryogenic freezing. Maybe they do, but I highly doubt it. So that's the second biggest problem. And then the third problem is you're assuming that there ever will be cures to some of these things. There, it's possible you can be preserved 500 years, 1,000 years into the future, and they still don't have a cure for what you died of back in the 2000s. So that's the other problem. And if we want to get really pedantic, then there's a fourth problem, which is we don't even know if society will be around and in the time that you hope to be preserved to. So if you hope to be preserved to like 2500 AD, and like say it's like an automatic timer that awakes you like 500 years into the future or something like that, then you wake up and find the civilization is completely gone. So those are all the problems with it, which means you getting back to Dion's original point, you got to live life now to the fullest. You can't you can't be trying to like look to preserving yourself in some sort of afterlife or trying to preserve your life beyond natural means, beyond the natural means of current science. So thanks, Carol. I appreciate it. Um, I no, I booted Red out, Pokemon. I timed him out, but seeing that it was so many of his dumb comments, I just banned him from the channel. And what that does is it's gonna ban him no matter what account he uses on YouTube. If he uses that IP address, he's still going to be banned because it bans the person by the IP address, not by their account. So he's done. So Juice Dope says the self is interesting. Like um, Dre, I'm sorry, his identity changed from in a wheel being wheelchair Jimmy, then he turned into a playboy, then he turned into a wannabe gangster rapper, and now he transformed into BBL Drizzy. Oh, you talking about Drake? Wait, was he once in a wheelchair? I think I saw a picture of that before, but I thought that was he actually injured for something? Did his boyfriend hurt him? No, I'm joking. Maybe his boyfriend had a blue chew. I'm joking. Shubajati says, "Sir, I would recommend you read one article from the BBC where they talk about cognitive behavior and personality and amazing case studies based on different data collected from different people in the UK." I mean, it sounds interesting. I would say case studies is the weakest form of empirical investigation. A lot of problems with Freud's own views is that he never looked for evidence that could falsify his views. He only looked for evidence that could support his views, and usually that was through case studies. And the problem was any case studies that didn't agree with his thoughts, he he kind of just disavowed. Up, Mrs. Contrarian is up. Let me just greet her. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting. Like I said, data studies is sort of like a starting point for like empirical investigation, but it's definitely not an end point. It can kind of just get you started with where you want to go with. Um, be a mod. What once this becomes a larger thing, I might look for moderators. But right now, it's so small, it wouldn't even be a good use of your time, Poker Man. Like I'm close to being monetized. I'm about to have 1,000 people. I still need enough watchable hours, which because some people think it's just about the subs. It's not about just the subs, which is an important part, but it's also about how many public watchable hours you have through through the YouTube algorithm that you get monetized. Because I think they made that a part of being monetized just because some people can game the system and get like literally thousands to tens of thousands of subs through like using bots and other sorts of trickery. And if it doesn't match up with the public watchable hours, you can tell that there's something fugazi about that, because you can see people do that on Instagram all the time. Like they'll show like they have tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of followers, and they're all like bots or whatever. So YouTube has made it you also have to have a certain amount of public watchable hours to be monetized. Once I hit that level, then excuse me, I'll probably need a mod because the wife is not gonna have time to be doing that. Excuse me. What's your name in LinkedIn? Um, well, my LinkedIn is just about my lead generation stuff. It doesn't connect to what I do on social media. Like, but you can look at all my stuff through here on YouTube, Instagram, my Facebook stuff, and I have all of those in the description as well. You can see all those in my description for my Instagram and Facebook, which are all like professional modes, so they connect with the YouTube. And I try to share the same sort of content amongst all three platforms. KM, who which one? Who is KM? Surav Ray said, "What's up? What's up, Surav? What are you talking about, man?" Oh, so I said people can ask me any sort of philosophy question. I did a live stream 4 days ago, almost 5 days ago, where I was asking people to ask me philosophy questions, and I decided to do it again because that one went so far straight from philosophy that I wanted to do another one. But oh yeah, by the way, KM was timed out, so guys, you don't have to worry about that person. I'm probably like behind where everyone else is in the comments because I'm scrolling down so I can see each one by one. So I'm gonna be a little bit behind you guys. But if something has bothered you, I have probably already either banned or timed the person out. Joseph Christensen says Mexican or Chinese food. Gotta choose one for the rest of your life. I'm gonna choose Chinese food, Joseph, because I don't really eat cheese that much, and it seems like Mexican food has an overabundance of cheese in its meals, so that wouldn't be my thing. I would choose Chinese food. Memes Daily says hello there. What's up, Memes Daily? Eric DeCarty says yo. Oedipus Rex. You talking about the story of Oedipus Rex, or you talking about the Oedipus complex? Um, because yeah, I've read the Oedipus Rex story, which Freud based his Oedipal complex on. So I don't know what you're asking. If you want me to comment on the actual psychological phenomena that Freud hypothesized, or you're talking about the actual Greek myth. Uh, Shubhajadi says, "Sir, it's really funny. My brother said the same thing, that there are less people in the U.S. working in tertiary and IT sector than the Indians who are dominating the Silicon Valley. So as in the UK." Interesting point. In the Silicon Valley in the United States too, the majority of folks aren't. I don't think are white. I think the majority of them are East Asian or South Asian. Nightwitch says Mexican. Subjective. Some people might choose Mexican. I mean, they're both delicious, but whenever I get Mexican food, I have to ask them for no cheese. Whereas with Chinese food, they're as with most East Asian food, there's not very much dairy in it, so I don't ever have to worry about there being like cheese and everything that I order. Carol says, laugh out loud. I have about 1,000 books, not to mention all the links I still need to watch. Right. So, like, I remember I had so many links on my Firefox browser. I did last year. Yeah, I think it was either 2023 or the end of 2022. I finally got through all my like article links in Firefox that I wanted to read. And that was partially because um, some of them have I had them for so long that those links no longer worked, so I couldn't even read some of them. Some other links weren't actual articles; they were um, links. It gave like a summary, and then it connected you to like a video, and I wasn't going to watch like an hour long video when I wanted to just read an article. Or some of the links ended up going to an article which was now behind a paywall, so that kind of limited how many articles I could read, even though I had like 100 or so links in my Firefox browser. But I did finally get through all of them, partially because I would read them like, either while on a commute or while, maybe in the bathroom or while like watching stuff on TV. But I still have a bunch of like physical articles to read, like hard print articles I want to read left over from like uh grad school mostly, and a bunch of textbooks from undergrad because like most people wanted to keep their textbooks for their major from undergrad as like a reference source. So I actually didn't just keep them as a reference source. I actually want to read through all of them because I actually will read dry books like that for fun. What makes you a contrarian? I'm Thanks for asking me. So I'm not really a contrarian. So a contrarian is really someone who they will just take the opposite view of whatever it is the majority viewpoint, and often they do that just because it makes them seem smarter than everyone else in the room. That's what a contrarian actually is. So like if everyone says, I think the best brand of car is, I don't know, say Mercedes or something, right? And the contrarian says, no, well, actually, I find that the best brand is actually such and such. That's a contrarian. He'll just take the minority viewpoint on any given topic. That's what a contrarian is. And I use that as a running joke that I've been called a contrarian just because if you're a scientific minded person, then often, especially in certain communities, like 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 say, I don't know, like the black community, for instance, people will hold viewpoints that aren't very rational, and for you to challenge them, they would just say, "Oh, you're just a contrarian." So that's literally where I got the title from, for my YouTube channel. Is hearing that whenever someone didn't like that I disagreed with something they said, like, "Oh, you're just a contrarian," and that was the nature of the name of my YouTube channel. Schubert Jati says, not even that. The big four in India, like Delawat, PwC, EY, opening more offices in India as labor is cheap. And so, uh, a work crisis in the US. Recently, I went to the biggest Microsoft office in Hyderabad, India. Oh, okay. So I didn't know you were actually in India right now. So that's cool. Carol says yes, but that's the blood and the meat that makes a crystal structure. E- mm, well, we're not talking about just hemoglobin, which was the protein in blood that will crystallize. If you look at any organic matter, like I said, if it's frozen for a long enough time, it crystal structures will form because most organic matter is partially water. Like our bodies are 70% water. You freeze it long enough, it's gonna freeze, and when it freezes, that water crystallizes. which is going to destroy the physical, any sort of physical material that surrounds it. So that's a problem with cryogenic freezing, and why it's not a solution to long term. It's not an option for long term survival. Not until they get rid of that basic biological problem. Big and mustache. Oh, what's up? You're back. Said he's telling you the truth. My wife is in a freezer in my basement. She doesn't look the same. It's becoming hard to spend time with her. That's a bit creepy, my friend. I hope we're joking. Justo says, "Damn, imagine being frozen for 1,000 years and then end up living life like Futurama, and you see flying cars and aliens everywhere." But that, yeah, imagine that. But that would actually be the best case scenario. So that's what all these wealthy people are hoping for. And like I said, I don't know this. They still had their program going, but this was definitely something that was an actual program like 25 years ago. You had very wealthy people doing cryogenic freezing, and like I said, the best case scenario is that you do wake up in the future. They solve whatever ailment you were suffering from in your present, in the past, which was your present, and you wake up to a Futurama type existence. But like I said, there's so many variables. Like let's say for the sake of argument that all the other problems are solved, so you don't have to worry. So the program existed for 1,000 years, and was sustained to make sure that all these people in these pods, these cryogenic pods, were preserved and maintained throughout that length of time. Let's also assume that there was someone who was clever enough to solve the crystallization process with frozen organic matter. That's supposed that um, that there was no power down anytime during that process. There was no power grid failure. There no economic crisis, anything of that nature, to 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 stop the program from running. And so you're into the future. There's no and that's also assumed that there was people in the future at that time that has solved your ailment. Like you had inoperable um, brain cancer and it went metastatic throughout your body. Boom, all of that's done. There's no there's no guarantee that that future is a place worth living. So that's the fifth problem that I didn't mention. You All the other problems are accounted for. There's no assurances that that future you wake up into is a place worth living. Not at all. So it's a big if. It's a big if. You might wake up in Futurama where you're in New York, and your best buddy is a suicidal robot who drinks as a source of fuel bender. But it's too many ifs. It's too many variables in that to make it a viable way of trying to extend your life. And no. Juso said, "Oh, he was an actor on the Canadian TV show Degrassi. In the TV show, he got shot by the high school and so ended up paralyzed in a wheelchair." Oh, okay, because I remember seeing a picture of him in a wheelchair, but I didn't know what that was about. I thought he died on the show, so he just got injured. Okay, and it's so funny that he's like on this suburban teeny bop Canadian high school TV drama, and he wants you to accept him in the hip hop community as someone who is like getting it out the mud. Like, like cut the BS. I'm so glad. Like, if honestly, if it wasn't Kendrick, I would have been just as glad if anyone else took him down because I just found the man extremely annoying. Like his whole persona was just so disingenuous. And to be honest, in the 80s or even the early 90s, there's no way he would have had a thriving career. Son of Soweto says, "Hi, my brother from another mother. What's up, son of Soweto? See you back. What do you know about the difference between African philosophy and Western philosophy?" So that was something I talked about 4 or 5 days ago. Is that I have actually wanted to talk about Afro. I mean, I wanted to take a course a long time ago in Afro Caribbean philosophy, but I didn't. I think either I was waitlisted for the class and didn't get in, or I ended up finding another class in its place that I wanted to take. So I never got to take the Afro Caribbean philosophy course. To be honest, I don't know very much about African philosophy. Um, and to be quite honest, a lot of stuff called African philosophy is mostly religion. It's not philosophy proper, and that's not to put down African metaphysics. It's just to say that so philosophy proper is divorced from supernatural things, which is what distinguished it from the Greek, the the Greek mythologies of the time, the Greek cults, as well as the Egyptian cults and so forth. Um, Same thing with Eastern philosophy and Indian philosophy. Like what separated them as philosophy is that they divorced themselves from some of the more um, supernatural or paranormal things that are talked about in the metaphysics of different systems. And actually, one way to look at it, the difference between religion and philosophy, as my one of my professors explained it, is that he said that religion is frozen metaphysics, which is to say that what was once like a a, a vibrant system of thought by one or two people became a dogma to their students, and basically taken as the truth instead of as a way of thinking about things. And that's what he calls frozen metaphysics. And said that most religions started off sort of in a sense of philosophy as a way of exploring topics about the world, and then they became dogmatic over time and became a religion. So, in that vein, I'm sure we could look at some aspects of African systems of thought as philosophy, but as far as I know, most of it isn't really divorced from spiritual aspects. So, because I mean, you have a lot of stuff, like I said, when you talk about like some of the Nigerian religions, like the Yoruba, the Hausa, the Igbo, as well as some other West African systems of thought. Um, a lot of it deals more with spirituality, I think, which would be an interesting thing to study in itself, especially looking at like comparative religion. But I don't know if it would be considered like philosophy proper. If you get what I'm asking, if you get what I'm saying. Juice dope say out with you Chinese saying. Carol says Chinese food will give you the worms. No. So we talk about take. And first of all, are we talking about Chinese takeout or real Chinese food? Because they are not at all the same. what what Chinese people actually eat is much healthier than Chinese takeout. Chinese takeout is not good for you. Chinese takeout is basically a westernized version of Chinese food that's deep fried, not good for you, but it fits the Western palate. But no, they cook their food well. Like I have not seen much problems with Chinese food as far as food poisoning. The worst I've seen is sometimes they will cook stuff and people will complain, oh, the chicken isn't cooked long enough because it's still pink, or I've heard people say, oh, it got some like aluminum in the food or something. Those are things I've heard, but I haven't overall heard of too much instances of food poisoning with Chinese takeout because most people who run these Chinese takeout restaurants, most of them are very well aware that Western people think that their food is like nasty or weird, or that it's dog food or stuff like that. So they know of all those stereotypes about their food. So most of them go out of the way to make sure that their food is prepared well. Most of them. Carol says, but I really like my sushi. Well, that's Japanese food. That's not Chinese. That's completely different. And again, any sushi prepared well is not going to have worms or anything in it. the fish is prepared fresh. It should not have worms in it. But with any raw food, you have to be careful because in any raw food there is the potential for parasitic cysts. But that's Japanese, not Chinese. If we're just saying Asian food, okay, let's just say Asian food. But a Chinese food proper and just Asian food in general, two different things. Um, have I tried Peruvian food? Yep, I have. There's a restaurant here that does Peruvian food. Interesting factoid. A lot of people don't know that there's a lot of Chinese food elements in Peruvian food, Jovan. If you eat Peruvian food, you already know that there's a lot of Chinese fusion into Peruvian into the Peruvian food. So yeah, I have tried Peruvian food. Carol says he should try African food. Some of the stuff is really delicious. Oh, I have. But by the way, I didn't know you were African, Carol. Yeah, I've tried, jollof rice with the chicken. Trust me, when I was in school, I went to the African Student Association, and they would have little get-togethers and have their own food. Like, there's a controversy between jollof rice, which is the Nigerian food, versus the Ghanaian version of the rice. So they argue about whose is better. Sort of like how people over in East and Southeast Asia argue between whether pancit canton or nori goreng, not nasi goreng is the better noodle dish because they're pretty similar. Nasi goreng being the Indonesian version versus the pancit canton, which is the Filipino version. So it's sort of the same thing with the Ghanaian rice versus the Nigerian rice, the jollof. But I've had Nigerian food. I've had Ethiopian food. Um, I think I had some Ghanaian food. Um, and I think that was it. Is it Carol says, especially Blitong, you will love that. That's where I am from. Okay. Camry is going on timeout. Sir, it's 3:38 a.m. And why are you still up then? Are you are you coming from something earlier this evening? Or are you just getting up extremely early? Because it's here 6:22 p.m. Okay. Um, see what the wife said. Um, need to sleep now, sir. Loved your live video. Please come forward to more of this content. Look forward to more of this content. And also please do read Bhagavad Gita, Change My Life and How I Think Today. Good night, sir. Love from India. Appreciate it. Get some rest. Shabravyadi. Appreciate you chiming in. Please go to sleep. It's very early or very late, whichever it is for you. um Justo says, if you could time travel, would you go to the past or the future? Justo, where we're going, we don't need roads. Let me stop. So, would I go to the past or to the future? It depends on your definition of time travel because you could kind of say that the future doesn't even exist yet. Well, the what we consider the future from our present doesn't even exist yet. So I'm not sure if you can travel into something that doesn't actually exist. Also, you could kind of say the same thing about the past, like the past no longer exists, so you can't travel into it. However, let's assume that you can travel into the past because there was a state of affairs at that time that would have been at that time the present, which is now the past, to our current present. Um, I would travel into the past. Um, I would probably go back to the 80s. I would love to go back into the 80s and relive it as an adult, as opposed to a little child, because it'd have been so much easier to be an adult in the 80s as to now. Like, you didn't have to have a stellar You didn't have to have a stellar credit report to have a job or get a house. If you had a college degree, even just an undergrad degree in the 80s, you were set. You were set. Nowadays, you have to have at least a master's degree. um, and still that even depends on the field in which you've received your education. The 80s was so much easier. Like aside from, you know, problems with the Cold War, um, that the huge economic recession in the early 80s, those were huge problems, but they were still trivial to what we're facing potentially today. I would go back to the 80s without a doubt. I'm a Generation X kid. That would be where I would go. I would not travel into the ancient past because it's more likely that I would not survive for various reasons. Um, so yeah, it would be the 80s for me. The future, I don't know what the future would bring, so I wouldn't want to travel into. So assuming that you can travel into the future, even though it doesn't yet exist, let's assume that you can. I wouldn't travel into the future because there's no telling it what what it would be. You could be traveling into a disaster, so I don't want to risk that. I want to travel to something where I knew what happened already. So I would probably travel to the 1980s. Carol said I'd also like to go to the past. Son of Sawyer says no, African philosophy is not religious. It deals with the very questions that every philosophy deals with: the nature of man, existence, and their spiritual. And like I said, I'm sorry, I could be totally talking from a point of ignorance, Son of Soweto. So I won't deny that. Like I said, that's my that would be my bias, is that I really don't know much about African philosophy. But what I was saying is that because I come from an analytic philosophy background, um, a lot of stuff that's considered philosophy outside of analytic philosophy doesn't interest me as much because I don't think it deals with the tools of logic and science the way the analytic philosophy specifically does. So, as I've talked about 5 days ago, continental philosophy is the other half of Western philosophy. So you have analytic philosophy and Western philosophy. Analytic philosophy starts from a tradition in the late 19th century, starting with the mathematician Gottlob Frege, who who discovered, um, well, not discovered, he invented modern symbolic logic, which basically was a program in which mathematics was reducible to formal logic. And in doing so, he made that logic was done in the language of mathematics, which gave us rise to computer science and formal languages and those sorts of things. And he also gave us the foundation of analytic philosophy. And his program, even though it didn't work for him, was taken on by others like Bertrand Russell, who was another founder of analytic philosophy, who also followed in Gottlob Frege's tradition of logicism, which was reducing all mathematics to logic. And then his student, Ludwig Wittgenstein, who also in his early part of his career was also into the logicism thing and actually gave us truth tables and showed us how logical truths can can be expressed through these truth tables, which means that these logical truths would be true in all possible worlds. And in any case, and then there was George Edward Moore or G.E. Moore. These are the four founders of analytic philosophy. And the crux of analytic philosophy is using conceptual analysis and logic as a basis of investigation into the nature of things, whether we're talking about the world or human nature, and using the tools of science. So that was analytic philosophy. Continental philosophy is more steeped in history of philosophy and literary criticism, it's not a sharp divide between what you might consider continental philosophy and literature. And you see a lot of these folks who do continental philosophy also have been received awards for being outstanding literary authors. They dealt with subjects that may not be considered hard hard philosophy, which analytic philosophers would deal with. And I think maybe stuff like African philosophy and Eastern philosophy and Caribbean Latino philosophy might fall more into the continental philosophy sort of thing, whereas analytic philosophy is a very specific tradition that dates back to ancient Greece, where they're looking at using philosophy as a form of formal investigation into the nature of the world, more along the lines of a priori sort of way. A priori meaning like using pure reason alone. So that that that's my bias. But like I said, I have no doubt there's probably what we can consider African philosophy out there. I just don't know too much of it. And I know if you look at websites like the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy or uh, the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, these are both websites that you'll find more literature on African philosophy. But I just don't know too much about it. But all I was saying is that there's more of a spiritual side to like African and Asian philosophy than in Western philosophy. All right. Sorry, I'm responding to Mrs. Contrarian. Justo says talking about Chinese takeout. The fried stuff is bad, but they do have a lot of vegetables and rice. Yeah, like so there are stuff on the Chinese takeout menu that is like Chinese food proper, but most people don't eat that stuff. Most people go for the bad stuff. I do too. I'm not gonna lie. I go for the General Tso chicken. I go for the orange chicken. I go for the Kung Pao chicken. Now Kung Pao is something they do actually eat the Kung Pao chicken, but they don't deep fry it like they do for Westerners. That's the westernized version of Kung Pao chicken that we usually eat. The kind they eat is usually more of a like sauteed version. Bombay says, "Greetings, sir. What's up, Bombay?" Juice Up says, "I like the fried shrimp and pork fried rice. I don't trust the fried chicken they make sometimes. Most of their fried chicken is good. Of course, it can't hold a candle to Korean fried chicken, which is double fried. Yeah, the fried Korean fried chicken is on a whole different stratosphere. But no, Chinese fried chicken is delicious. Like I said, it depends on the individual place you go. Like obviously some places put more craft into their cooking than others, right? So that's like with anywhere. It's just like with McDonald's. Like most people know, don't go to the McDonald's in the hood, right? So it's the same thing. Thoughts on censorship? You gotta be a little bit more specific. But to generally answer your question, I'm almost a free speech absolutist, so I don't believe in censorship. Um, but but there's a place for everything, and sometimes people try to express views where it's inappropriate to do so. So, for instance, when a live stream, when we're talking about something specific, and people wanted to just come on and insult the people in the chat room, or they want to insult the person who's giving the live stream. Like there's nothing wrong with expressing those opinions, but it's inappropriate at that specific point in time. If that answers your question. Juice still says you're very cultured and intelligent. You know a lot about the world. It's a shame women in the West don't value men like us. Well, that's a whole different discussion. That's a and I appreciate it, by the way. Thank you. I don't really think I'm that intelligent, but if people think I am, I am flattered. Um, as far as whether women value people like us, well, that's why there's a passport bro movement, right? Which isn't actually new. It's just something that has taken on a new label because it's now in the public eye. But people have been silently doing the passport bro thing for like the last 100 years. But now that it's in the public eye, and was given a name like 5 years ago, now everyone knows about it. You guys, are you? Sounds like a version of French, maybe like a sort of like a. Yeah, like my French is pretty poor, so if you're using a specific um, version of that, I wouldn't know. No, no, that's not okay. Now that doesn't sound like French anymore. That sounds like Dutch. But whatever. Ballinger Powell says lucid dreaming is a strong tool we all carry to break up with the matrix. Mm, I don't think there's anything particularly illuminating about lucid dreaming. Actually, I think people who lucid dreaming, it can be an indication they might have some other issues going on, but not by itself. Because some people are just able to lucidly dream where others can't. But for people whom do that a lot, it may be a sign of mental health issues. Jusuf says, honestly, if you go back to your past self and alter something about your life, all you would do is create an alternate timeline reality. The current future version of yourself will still exist. So we want to, yeah. So like the MCU subscribes to that view. So it's different views on altering the past, and then there's obviously the grandfather paradox that you can't change the past without changing the future. And there's if there's only one timeline, then obviously it would change your future. But if there's not just one timeline, but it can be branching timelines anytime you go back to point X and change it, so you no longer go to point. So after you change what what happens at the events of point X, then you no longer will go to point Y. Instead of you're gonna go to an alternate timeline, point Y1, right, or point Y2 and point Y3 and so on. I I, I can't really say. But as far as time traveling, I was assuming we were talking about as our present self, not going back into our earlier self. It says, thanks for giving me the time to answer some questions and share your views with us. Have yourself a good morning. Thank you, Carol. Juso says, kind of like future Trunks going to the past and changing it in the Dragon Ball Z. His world in the future doesn't change, even though he went to the past and altered the fate of the world. Yeah. Nasruddin says, good day. God bless her. Thank you, Nasruddin. Thanks for showing up again. Oh, and go make coffee for your wife. Yeah. So I make a special coffee for her that she loves because it's both strong and it's sweet at the same time. So I don't know if she wants me to give it away, but yeah, I won't give away that here. Maybe at a different time. Nasruddin says it's kind of interesting when you look at future as past and past as future. Yeah. Well, because it's always a moving target, right? Have you trade have have I tried ayahuasca once? I'm not and I'm probably butchering that name, so I'm sorry. I'm not sure what ayahuasca is. Uh, Nasruddin said that's why present is more important. So there's a certain trade-off. Like you have to care about the present, but you should also care about the future. It's unhealthy to care about one over the other because you always have to be looking. You always have to have some sort of foresight which is why people who fail in life are people who fail to have certain foresights. Like in school, they didn't have the foresight to get an education to realize that it's going to prepare them for the future to have a rewarding career, or people who neglected their health just to suffer from terminal illness in the future because they decided they didn't care about eat they didn't care about nutrition, they didn't care about being fit. So you always have to have a certain foresight. However, you can't live only for the future. You have to have your feet grounded in the present as well, because if it's like the old philosophical tale of the philosopher who kept staring at the stars, who the the astronomer who spent so much time staring at the stars that he walked along and fell into a well. So gotta do both. Buddhaman says, "Spot me $5." That's not gonna happen. Forever BFF says, "Hey, what's up?" Juice Up says, "True, maybe it's the the hood Chinese spots that need to be avoided. It always feels like they use cheap oils when making fried chicken." You know what? I'm not gonna even disparage all the hood Chinese places, because some of them Chinese places are the shit. I mean, let's be honest. You go the hood Chinese spots when they got the son working at the front, because the parents don't know how to speak English, and it's like the little 8-year-old boy taking your order. Come on, you know that food is fire. That food is going to be fire. And they might even have like the plastic the little plastic shield up to keep from gunfire. Some the really bad places have the little have the little plastic or glass up to keep from gunfire or whatever. But there'll be like the little boy up front that's taking the orders. You know that food is gonna be fire. If there's like a little kid taking your order, you already know that food gonna be good as shit. The hood. So yeah, let's say all the hood spots are bad. Like I said, some of them hood spots got the best Chinese takeout. Like I said, the places with the little boy working in the front, or you see like a bunch of people in the back just tossing food up in the wok. Or you call on the phone. It doesn't matter what you order. They say 10 minutes. It's gonna be 10 minutes. I don't care what you order. You could say, man, I want some I want some Peking duck, some General So, and some bang bang shrimp. They're like, okay, 10 minutes. That shit's gonna be ready in 10 minutes, and it's gonna be fire. It's gonna be fire. Jesus says, "Who you got winning, Kendrick or Drake?" Kendrick already won. It's not even who's gonna win. Kendrick already won. It's so bad. There were people in Congress talking about this, and I'm not even bullshitting. Like I was watching Rising the Hill, and there was a someone who works in Congress, not a senator or a congressperson, but like one of their underlings, and they were talking about how in Congress they were talking about the Kendrick versus Drake beef. I'm like, damn, in Congress, even 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 old people are saying Kendrick won. It's done. It's not even a decision anymore. Every the hip hop world has said he's won. Normal people who don't even know hip hop say Kendrick has won. Like it's won. It's done. BBL Drizzy lost. I'm sorry. I like his music, but he's whack. And his music is only good because he can hire, you know, producers to give him really good beats, and he can hire ghostwriters to give him good lyrics. So, Will Smooth says Biden 2024. I don't know about that one, buddy. Um, if that's who you're voting for, um, well, good luck. That's all I'll say. Max Paz says eight-year-old make sure his family get paid. Yeah, I mean, it's not he's making sure his family get paid. It's just like the He's probably the only one in the family who speaks like English, because most of the Chinese takeout places are run by recent migrants. Because Chinese people who are like second, third, fourth generation, they don't own Chinese takeout places. Like they may own restaurants, but they'll usually own like the more upscale restaurants in Chinatown or outside of, or like um one of those little fusion places. And like when we're talking about like the places with the most like largest Asian populations, like New York City, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, right? Um, Most of those second, third, fourth generation people are not running takeouts. Those are usually migrants, and most of them speak very little English. So their child who grew up in the American school system can speak English. That's why they're usually the ones taking the orders in these places. And like I said, these people work hard, so I give them all due credit. And it's just it's just a running stereotype that if you go to one of those little hood spots where it's like a little kid taking your order, that usually that food is gonna be really good. So Tangy Ross is biting all the way. Okay. Max Bell says he knows the English and double to math. Yeah. Um Chief still says Biden belongs in a retirement home. Thank you. The man is 81. Like me and my friend was saying in a previous video, and you guys can check it out. This guy's so old, he's not even a boomer. He's from the silent generation. The baby boomer generation was from 1946 to 1964. So he's older than he was born before 1946. He's from the silent generation. He's from the generation where World War II was still ongoing. And by the time of the November election, he's going to be 82. 82 years old. The oldest president we've ever had. Um, if that doesn't grab you, just remember that he's about the same age as Bill Clinton was, who was in office like 30 years ago. So yeah, like that's crazy. And it's not just that, but if he was still like astute, mentally astute, that would be a different thing. But he, I like let's put aside whether we agree with his politics or whether we don't. For the record, I don't. Let's put that aside. Whether you hate his politics, whether you like his politics, I think he should have stuck to his original promise to just be a one-term president, and he should just retire with grace. Like he set out to do what he tried to do decades ago. He's been trying to run for president since the early 2000s, right? He finally achieved it. Let it go. Like he's like, well, are they gonna be giving him some some B vitamin supplements when he has this debate with Trump? Because both he and Trump have now agreed to do a debate, and they're gonna exclude RFK Jr. But come on, man, to use his favorite phrase, like it's not gonna be pretty. It's gonna be worse than that movie Grumpy Old Men. Like no, he does he should just retire with grace as an elder statesman who's achieved the highest level of politics you can possibly achieve in America, which is American president, instead of facing a disappointing defeat this coming election. That's how I see it. I think he should have retired with grace and have let a younger, more capable candidate take his place. I think that would have been a smart move. Kyrus says, "What and what's up, Kyrus? I see you're back." Lee Bai is also a philosopher who was too busy trying to grasp the moon's reflection in the water and ended up drowning. Was this a Chinese philosopher? But yeah, so that's a common saying that, and I probably said it incorrectly, but that was the gist of the homily, was that this was a philosopher or philosopher slash astronomer who spent so much time staring up and exploring the stars that he failed to see the well before him and fell into it. Justo says, honestly, Drake's rap career might be over after this. I don't see him bouncing back from this. Joe Budden was right. Father Time going to catch up to him eventually. That's funny. I haven't even heard Joe Budden talk about talk about the whole beef. Um, and I haven't really heard 50 Cent. He's been too busy just trolling the shit out of Diddy. Like the stuff that he puts on his Instagram, man, has me crying. When he showed that video of Meek Mill rapping, and he said something about fucking, then Diddy turns around and starts doing some duck lips at him. I couldn't. That was too funny. Amir Ahmad says Gus. I'm not sure what that is. Drake almost 40 and Kendrick made him look like a like a pedo. That's not gonna be a good look in Drake's future. You would think, but in an entertainment field, it's so much debauchery in Hollywood and in the music industry that who can say? And plus, we know that half of Drake's identity is with the protected group. So that's all I'll say. Kyra says, "Yeah, I think you said it right. I've heard it before. I just thought the amount of links between poets and philosophers dying in obscure ways associated with stargazing was interesting." They're actually, I think it was on Wikipedia and it was listing all the, I think it was Wikipedia or somewhere else where it was listing all the deaths of philosophers. And you'd be surprised how a lot of them went. A lot of them took their own lives. Because as I stated before in the previous live stream about philosophy, there's a connection between clinical depression and people who study philosophy just because philosophers tend to be realists, and there's an aspect of clinical depression called depressive realism that people who are depressed tend to actually be more realistic about their outcome and about life in general, whereas um, people who tend to be more mentally healthy tend to be more unrealistic about their outcome and life in general. So to be to have a to be mentally healthy is to have somewhat of a unrealistic outlook on life, which is interesting. Juice Up says Joe Budden had a beef with Drake. Who hasn't? And Drake had said Joe Budden old and washed up because he hasn't made a hit in a long time. Joe Budden's clapped back at him by saying that Father Time will catch up to him. Oh. Well, Joe Budden is a has been, but he's smart. He knows that. That's why he's a podcaster now. And just because he's old doesn't mean he's not a celebrated person within the rap game. Uh, that is one of the reasons people don't respect people like Drake. That you don't show homage to the people who came before you. Like that's why I have a problem with a lot of these current hip hop stars. Like they shit on the people from the past because they didn't make money like they do, disregarding the fact that the reason they can make so much money now is because of the road that the godfathers of rap have paved before them. They've made all the mistakes in the past. They've blazed a trail for people to follow now to become stars within the hip hop industry that didn't exist. They created it, and there's an there's incentivization by certain insiders within the hip hop industry to keep the old school and the new school apart because it keeps the new school from learning from the guys of the past so that they could have long-term careers. So, but Drake is definitely out of pocket for that. Kyra says, yeah, a lot of nihilists have a weird record. So nihilism, well, you have different forms of nihilism. I don't subscribe to nihilism, but it is generally agreed in philosophy that one thing that the nihilists do have correct is that there is no meaning to life outside of taking it on faith. The nihilists are right about that. They're wrong about what what that means for people, because some take that as some take that as a carte blanche that they can do anything in the world to others or even to themselves, and it just doesn't matter, and that's simply sociopathic, right? Um, but the nihilism thing is, a complicated thing. Then there's a type of um, there's a there's a type of, like, I guess you can call it nihilism. I don't know. You can call it constructive nihilism that Nietzsche was for, which so from his point of view, he's like, yeah, so there's no meaning to life outside of what we take on faith, which um, he would consider a form of self deception. But from that trajectory, he saw it that because there's no purpose or meaning to life outside of what we create, that gives us actually ammunition to arm us against people who would try to take advantage of others by try to teach them different things that will give meaning to their lives. As particular politicians and religious leaders, they take advantage of people searching for a deeper meaning to life by giving them false hope and certain things. So he was saying, looking at it from a constructive nihilist point of view, if we know there's no meaning to life, yeah, we have all these people pretending to know what's out there to give more meaning to our lives. We have to say, what's in it for them? Why do they why do they know these things, and why would they teach us these things unless there's something in it for them? So for him, constructive nihilism became sort of a form of skepticism, I should say, to use, or critical thinking to use in how we um, deal with other people in society that want to take advantage of us, or people who want us to believe things that may be more in their interest than in our own, if that makes sense. But on that, I'm about to end this, guys. I need to um, do a little resting, and then I'm gonna hit the gym and work out, and deal with the wifey. Uh, but unless there's any other questions, and if you guys like, we can do another philosophy one later on, if not this week, next week. But I appreciate everyone contributing, including the trolls. Some of them I had to ban because they were out of pocket. But unless there's any other questions, I always give it a few seconds because I know some people might be furiously typing away on their phone, their keyboard, as I'm speaking. So I give it a few minutes, but after that, we can wrap it up, and then you can just leave comments on the stream after it's posted to the channel, which most of the time people don't do, but I don't mind if people do it. I will still go back to those old live streams if I find any comments and answer them. Okay, but I don't see anything just yet, so I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. Appreciate the talk. All right, thank you.